please start.
Yep, we'll
The
start.
order rule. Okay, we'll convene this budget meeting of October 27th, 6:33 p.m.
Thank you, council, for attending. This is the first of several meetings for the proposed 2016 budget. I've given you a handout. You have a cover sheet, singular white, that you have in front of you. And you also have a stapled copy of the proposed budget that I sent to everyone. Of course, this evening, we're just going to be talking about police and fire. The police is a goldenrod and the fire is a blue and pink. However, before that, just to recap, when we developed our 2015 budget, council was faced with some pretty drastic circumstances. Among them were a $500,000 of costs related to minimum municipal obligations for both the uniform and non-uniform pension plans. Nearly $500,000 of workers' comp premium cost, $21,000 in state revenue withholding that was not paid from 2013, $80,000 in non-payment of Social Security payments from 2011 through 13, and we were unsure as to whether we were able to secure a tax anticipation note, among other items. I project the borough will make it through 2015 with a modest but less than initial anticipated surplus that we had at $124,000, perhaps now about $23,000.
You got,
The
Mr.
surplus
President, we get
nonetheless.
Jason, you sit up
Over here, I got him over here.
Okay.
Wherever, yeah, there you go, Jason. Anyone on the street. The projected draft 2016 budget that you have in front of you, the process was initiated back in early October when we solicited worksheets to be completed by the different department heads, and also asking the various council chairs to also submit their input and their comments toward the 2016 budget development. So the attached to what you have in front of you right now is a draft preliminary 2016 budget, and it is a composite of all the worksheets that were submitted to us by the department heads, as well as some of you that submitted your requests and your comments. So we entered the 2016 budget deliberations with some of the 2015 issues that have either been resolved or dramatically reduced. Excuse me, what remains are the $80,000 Social Security resolution, a continued $500,000 of minimum municipal obligation pension payments for both the uniform and non-uniform pension plans, as well as we did have the substantial reduction in workers' comp by $110,000, but nonetheless still substantially high. Additionally, not having an executed police collective bargaining agreement is troublesome as we deliberate a realistic and fair budget for the taxpayers. I have included in the projected income the following changes from 2015. 1 1/3 millage increase with 1/3 dedicated to Carnegie Library, and with 1 mil dedicated for road repair and paving. Elimination of the annual garbage payment incentive. All will pay $55 per quarter or $220 annually. The removal of 1% of early payment on municipal real estate taxes and return to the normal 2% discount. And a $1.1 million tax anticipation note to cover both this first quarter 2016 expenses and set aside funds for road repair and paving, for which council needs to authorize by its November 18th meeting for me to begin the application process for a TAN, both at TC&D and First Commonwealth. So this evening, we zero in only on police and the fire department's proposed budgets for their presentation and discussion and adjustment. The following 2016 budget formulation meetings are as after tonight. November 4th, Public Works and Sanitation. November 11th, Recreation and Administration and Miscellaneous. November 18th, we'll be discussing the income. December 2nd, the discussion and agreement on a proposed budget for public inspection. And December 16th, a final budget adoption and tax anticipation adoption. Of course, as you know, legally, we have until the end of December to adopt the budget. We're hoping to do that before Christmas this year. Last year, we did that on December 30th. So this comprehensive, inclusive process does not, in my estimation, necessitate any budget reopening in 2016. So having said that, we've asked both chiefs to present to you this evening their proposed budgets, and we're going to start with the police chief. And in your proposed budget document, the golden lodge sheets is what we're going to be looking at tonight.
Bob, if I might, I'd like to interject. Before we go to the chief and his presentation, I mean, I'm just astounded, I'm kind of taken aback by the numbers. Because just a quick analysis here, if you go to the last page that has the final estimated budget numbers of last year projected $7,463,485, and you're showing a projected going to $8,689,565, which is $1,226,000 more than 2015, and it's a 16% increase in the budget. And you know, we just had a presentation by RDM that said, you know, you gotta start to curtail what you're spending and try to get it to 3.5 or 3.6%, and we're increasing the budget 16% here, and I think that's just not a good way to start off.
Up for deliberation and obviously negotiation before the middle of December.
I mean, we can't sustain going up 16% a year. I mean, what are we gonna raise taxes every year? I mean, it's just, and then that drives down real estate prices, which then in turn drives up future millage rates. I mean, it's a downward cycle. We've got to somehow find a way to curtail our expenses, or we're gonna be like some of these other mill towns that you just, you know, we'll be in 15, 18 mills just to get through. And I think, you know, now's as good a time as any, especially in light of paying $70,000, although we only pay 10%, of bringing in a consultant, and the first thing we do is ignore what they said to do, which was curtail and keep our growth in spending to about 3.5%. Even at 5%, I could probably live with, you know, on a $7 million budget, it's going up, you know, $350,000 is 5%, which is about $1 million. You know, and that could be made up either in $1 million taxes or it could be made up with an increase in some of the fees that you spoke about, which are gonna increase, you know, getting rid of the extra 1%, eliminating the discount on the garbage that was extended, which again was recommended by the consultant. But, you know, before we move into the chief's thing, I just would like to get a general perspective of council. If we think that 16% is a sustainable amount of money, no matter what we're getting for it, if we're getting streets or we're getting, you know, better sanitation or whatever it is that we're getting for our money.
Absolutely not.
This is very preliminary, and we're gonna work from here.
We're gonna work,
And, you know,
absolutely not, it's not.
No, it's unacceptable, 16%, start here. We're gonna end up with the end of, middle of December, I think.
Where are the main increases at? I mean, what are the big hitters?
Well, obviously, capital improvements, roads. We did do a capital improvement plan, as you well know. And I did use that for, again, it's projections, whether the council decides to do it or not. Some hardware increases for administration, primarily most of it would be going into streets.
I did present a recommendation that we do, you know, our debt services that go high, you know, that we do, maybe getting a bond, to do some of the streets, even, rather than the 300 a mil,
I mean, 1 mill's only gonna get us what? A street and a half, maybe
330,000.
2 streets,
Well, $350,000 will get you
1 street.
more than one street, it
Well,
depends
more than
on
one
the
street.
length. But, I
Maybe
The,
4 or 5 streets.
mean, we're talking $500,000 to really get where we want to be.
Ravine Street was projected in 2015
700,000?
numbers, roughly about 400,000.
400,000?
Our end of it would be about 400, and that's just
Well, the
Ravine.
price of gas is like it is, the price of everything else goes down also.
And Woodhill was, back then was 700 grand, I'm sure it's come down because asphalt's come down.
And we've done
Main Street's
pieces
gonna
of
need to be done.
Woodhill too, though.
I think we're too far into the process to look at bond issue and major overhaul of streets and roads for next year, but I think it should be in the works for 2016, to where there's planning, and then maybe we do some type of bond issue, where we're paying, pieces of that over 5 years.
Somewhere where we can get enough money to do 15, 20 streets,
Right.
rather than 3 or 4.
I mean, I realize that's not gonna happen for these talks, but.
That was a major expenditure, obviously, Joe. The other, of course, is salary increases. We have the collective bargaining agreement with Public Works, which is automatically 3%. Although we don't have a collective bargaining agreement yet with the police have asked for 5% each year for 3 years compounded. Management has asked for 0% first year, 1% and 2%. For the budget that you have in front of you, I guesstimated 3% just to be on average for that. It could be high, it could be low. So that, and incrementally with the benefits that go with that, obviously that could be increased. But the big major share was capital improvement. But again, we'll be looking at income toward the end, and certainly, projected the 1.3 mil figure that is probably not gonna fly anyway, but the plan that was presented to us by RDM did suggest a 1/3 increase in millage to cover the library, which right now, the 1/3 is coming out of the existing millage base. If we add it by 1/3, that's set aside for the library, and that pretty much releases about $120,000 a year for capital improvements.
I wanted to do that last year and I was turned down.
I have a question on that. If we separate it, Bob, would it still be coming out of the borough, or would the tax collector be sending the residents a bill for the library?
Under the borough code, the borough council can set aside a specific millage, so separately just for library.
So we wouldn't be
As
going
again,
to the
for
tax
fire,
collector,
as
then it
again.
wouldn't be going to delinquent tax,
It would go specifically for the library.
I got it, okay.
We had a reason last year to go when it was passed through the voters. I don't think they would have said anything because it was on the ballot, but this year, I'm probably gonna get some back fee from the residents.
It was one of the recommendations from the state.
I'm just saying.
I know, as well as the other recommendations, as I incorporated here on the non-incentive of garbage fees for paying early, and the reduction of obviously the 3% real estate down to 2% discount for the first 2 or 3 months. So if we can proceed at least with the police and the fire budgets, and give a presentation this evening, and your questions that you may have. Obviously, there will be some, and as we evolve into the process, hopefully we do come to an acceptable and balanced budget. So I'm gonna turn it over to the chief.
Before you start, can I get back to the meeting dates? You have a meeting scheduled on November 11th. That's Veterans Day. And I know myself, I go to a evening dinner in memory of the veterans. So I don't know if anybody else does anything or not.
That's our normal council workshop date. So whether council wants to meet that night or not, it's certainly up to council, but that's why.
I just thought I'd mention it.
salaries, as well as some of the benefits. As I mentioned, we don't have a collective bargaining agreement yet, so I factored in 3% increase from 2015 into 2016. Whether that flies or not, I don't know, but for right now, I've included 3%. The health insurance will increase a bit by 5%. The other ones, like life insurance and unemployment, essentially are negligible. I think we have 3 officers that take, in lieu of the health insurance, they have the benefits given to them. That's 410, 155 benefit in lieu of. Other than that, a couple other things. On 410, 164, I'm sorry, that's longevity, 165 holiday benefit. 2015, we budgeted $125,705. That has traditionally been a one-time payment to all the police officers given during the first pay period in November. We have one coming up. For projected into the next contract, again, we don't have a contract to eliminate that and to actually pay the officers for actual time worked at time and a half. I projected that, or it's been projected to be about $129,000. Personally, I think that's on the high side. The chief and I tend to differ on that. At any rate, that there's a shifting in that, and it may be less than $129,000. So I just want to bring those to your attention, and that, of course, is subject to having a collective bargaining agreement. In overtime, 410, 168, we project the overtime and court time to be about $70,000. You do not have for year-to-date 2015. We don't have an accurate number on that. We're working with bookbinders to extract that from our previous payrolls. So it's difficult to measure, but we expect it to be about 70. Outside of the salaries, the wages, and the benefits, and I'll turn the rest over to the chief on the other itemized issues that you see in front of you.
Okay, as Bob said, the first, 4 items are all pending this new CBA. What I did ask Bob to do going forward for next year is separate the court overtime and the general overtime. The court overtime is gonna be about double what the general overtime is. Should be, roughly around the same figure total. But I've asked for that in the past to be broken into 2 separate categories. It's not accurate as to what overtime is. What Bob was saying about the holiday benefit, it was explained to me differently by Sergeant Ford, who's negotiating for the bargaining unit, as to what Bob did explain to me. That's why I think we differ on what that total will be.
Is yours higher or lower, Pat, than Bob's?
I think
What's what I'm
it's
thinking?
about accurate, and he thinks it's gonna be a little bit lower.
Bob thinks it'll be lower, okay.
Excuse me.
There's some stuff in here for the copier, stuff like that, that I don't negotiate those contracts. That's done by the office. We are moving to a different type of scheduling in the coming year. I'm hoping that's gonna keep our overtime at minimum. A lot of guys are unhappy about it, but it's gonna benefit the department. Police cars, last year we budgeted nothing for it, correct?
No, we budget.
We budgeted
One.
we budgeted the previous payments that we were already dealing with.
No, we had
We budgeted one
$30,000.
after that.
Excuse
So.
We budgeted that plus 1.
Yeah, but we didn't, it was plus 1, as you can see from the year to date, because we didn't factor in the last payment from the previous one.
Ammunition, you can see at 410,223. I've asked for 9,000. We spent just about 9,000 year to date. What is not reflected in here, everything over the 6,000 bought with asset forfeiture funds. Once we exhaust the budget number, we're allowed to buy necessities with that fund, but not prior to, and we cannot eliminate a line item budget, a line item to just automatically throw it in.
But you gotta spend $6,000 on, out of the forfeiture funds for that.
No, once we spend the 6,000 we're budgeted, because the Justice Department gets a copy of this budget every year, it's part of the agreement. Once we go over the 6,000, we meet the 6,000, then we can request to use those funds if we need more ammunition.
Can you
But
budget
not-
less this year, so you can take more out for the fund for the following year? See, last year you budgeted 6, you went over,
We
so you had to
wanna-
get 3 out of the fund.
We took 3 out of the
So
fund.
what if you budgeted only 4 this year, and you needed more, so you can get more out of the
No,
fund?
I'll do it.
You don't know how to do that.
Sub-planning,
You can't go lower than what you budgeted the year
Right,
before.
you can't do that.
Alright.
It's what they refer to as sub-planning, we're not allowed to do that. There's, is there anything on the first page that anyone has any questions on?
I have some questions on the task force.
Okay.
Can you explain to me what that is and who's involved in that and how we're paid, reimbursed, or are we reimbursed, or are we not reimbursed? Because there's
Reimbursed dollar
questions.
for dollar, any outside agency that we work for. We work with the Attorney General's office, we work with the FBI task force, we work with the DEA task force, we work with the South Hills DUI task force. Project Buffalo, you know, there's numerous ones. We enter into those agreements, they pay anything, they cover any expense we incur over our own. Like, they will pay, say like the FBI task force. Officer Caterina works that quite often. They pay any overtime that he incurs during that, up into about $17,200 an officer, $17,200 per officer. Sergeant Price, same thing with the DEA. I know we went over that in the last few years, over the budget item, you know, say if it's 40, we went over it a little bit, but it's all dollar for dollar coming back to the borough.
It does get matched dollar for dollar then.
It's their money, yeah, we're putting the money out, they're paying it back to us.
We project in 2016, that's to be about $18,000 coming back to us
It's, for this year,
next year.
no, it should, I mean, if we're spending 40, we should get 40 back.
Well, that's right.
Yeah, I don't know what we're spending, but anyhow, we'll get into the income.
It looks like it was cut in half.
Right.
Excuse me?
Well, it went from 40 to 20, projected 20 grand, what's that mean?
No,
Why would
we
we
get
cut?
back dollar, for any hour, for every hour we bill them, we get paid for that hour.
Right, but we're losing money on we're making money on the forfeiture fund, we're losing money on the ancillary expenses of it, workers' comp, that type of stuff. But what I'm questioning is, the 2015 budget says 40 grand. 2016 requests 20 grand.
I didn't put that in there.
Right.
Yeah, I left it the same.
So it should be 40, and we'll probably get around 40 back.
Right around, yeah, whatever we spend on that, we get back. As long as someone in the office sends the invoice to that agency, we get the money back.
And whose office is supposed to send that letter?
Excuse me?
Whose office is supposed to send that letter?
Whoever the treasurer is, whoever sends out an invoice,
As
will
long as
send
we
it.
have the information coming from the police
And
department.
everything's on our weekly pay sheets, everything's in there.
Okay.
Task, whether it's FBI task force, and whatever it is.
So,
So that comes in by.
Go ahead.
That
So-
comes in by correct.
so how does the money get returned back to us? A, and then B, how does it go into the forfeiture fund?
Two separate things. The money we're being reimbursed, Bob just said, it's.
It's wired into our.
It's wired into our account.
Okay,
The asset forfeiture fund is a whole different account, has nothing to do with the general fund, it's a separate account.
I know that.
That is
How
direct
do,
deposit.
how do they determine how much money that we receive for that, that you receive for
It
that?
depends on what the forfeiture is. We get a percentage, depending on what our involvement was. If we were the lead agency, if we initiated the investigation, we would get more. If we played a smaller role, we get a smaller percentage. I think right now $135,000 in that account.
Somewhere around.
120, 100.
And in the pipeline, we probably have about 350,000. It takes, in the federal system, it takes a long time to get that money. We probably, once we entered the program, it probably took us 1.5 or 2 years to get the first check. The person has to be either plead guilty or be found guilty before that asset can be turned over to whoever's making the claim, us, the federal government. We have about $350,000 in the pipeline, and we know will come in. It's just, it may take the next 2 years, it may take the next 2 weeks.
How long did that car sit out there? That's similar to that? Remember that car sat out there
Yeah,
for a
but
couple
we end up
years?
giving that back.
Then I give it back?
We end up giving it back. Is
Under
that-
2 years, buddy.
I'd say it was over a year, well
Yeah,
over a year.
yeah, for 2.
It sat out there, then it sat in the back for,
Oh, this in the back?
oh, it sat in the back for 4 months.
Well, we don't get that money like on a monthly basis, do we?
No,
It
it depends
comes
on,
in.
we might get 4 all at the same time, and then we might not see anything for a few months.
But we do get it by the end of the year,
We get it by convictions.
by conviction.
Whenever that person is convicted, say they confiscated $1 million from this person, $1 million, $500,000 in cash, the rest in assets. Once that person is convicted, they divvy up what our percentage of that forfeiture was. They take the assets to auction, and we get a percentage of that as well. So there's no schedule for that. It just depends on the court system, on, how long it takes. The federal, conviction rate is about 98%. So if there's a seizure, 98% of the time we're getting that money.
Well, for instance, like if we go, you spend $20,000 this year on this one case, and you don't get convicted till next year when it goes to trial.
They'll reimburse us the $20,000, dollar for dollar for every hour worked on a monthly basis. They clear that up every month. Whatever time we have invested in that case, they pay us on a monthly basis.
Okay.
The forfeiture is a whole
It's a
different thing,
separate issue.
totally separate issue.
No, well, Manny was referring to the monthly,
The monthly
so what we
expenses.
spend.
Right, they reimburse us, monthly.
Thank you, Pat.
Anything else regarding the task force line item?
Page 2 of the vote.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. And Bob, this is probably more for you, because it's actually not just under police, it's actually everything. I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. So, just the police, for example, a lot of these figures, 2015 budget, 2016 budget, the figures are roughly the same, but then in year-to-date, it might be drastically off. Like, for example, unemployment compensation is $5,000 in 15, $6,000 in 16, but up to this point it's 0. And in any of those cases, those figures that will become realized by the end of the year, they're just not actualized now.
Yeah, on year-to-date, we do have some issues. We have a third-party agency that handles our books called Bookminders. And it's just a misinterpretation of the chart of accounts. And what we did, the person that we had assigned to us, this should all be resolved before the end of the year, as to the year-to-date.
Okay.
Because we do have some issues with the code of that.
Jason, I have the same question. Out of 59 line items for the police budget, 25 have no year-to-date figure.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the items, like, you'll find if you look at life insurance, 410.159, it's shown 8,100, and then in 15, it's shown we used 15,000.
Yeah, that's.
Well, if you go down to 410.166, long-term disability, it was budgeted for 14.5, but we only spent 24. So if you combine the two, it's almost, it's just a matter of where it was coded.
Anything else on the first page? I was told there may be some questions in regard to our records management system, which is all the tougher line items.
410.53.
budgeted.
Yeah,
The figures are actually, the 41045, middle of the page, budgeted for 3250, year-to-date 4527. I don't know why that is, I don't know if that's miscoded, but it's a one-time fee. That's our membership fee in the Tupper system, with 26 other police departments. I don't know why that's over that, it shouldn't be, it's a yearly fee that we've paid for many years. $32.50, it's the same price, it hasn't changed in 4 or 5 years. The next item below that is the option 1 service. It's a maintenance contract. If we have any problem with our machines, that buys us 20 hours of IT service for the year. We typically use very close to that amount, so it's money well spent. Tupper program at 41053, going down the page. Like I said, it got to be a coding issue because that's the same fee, it's been the same fee for a number of years. It's budgeted for $1,300 for the year. Year-to-date, it's at $48.95. It's a one-time fee, it's not a monthly recurring fee.
It's way over budget.
There's no, like I said, it has to be miscoded because it's, you pay it one time, and that's it. It's not a recurring bill.
We can't go over budget with it.
You can't, I mean, as long as you pay it.
Yeah, pay it, it's
Right,
over.
so it has to be a coding issue. Same with the circuits. The circuits is for our frame relay that gives us our access to NCIC. The NCIC, that, the top of the page, the very first line item, that actually goes directly to the state to access the state computer system. The upper circuits is the frame relay that gets us that information.
What are air cards?
Air cards are, for every laptop we have, you have to have an air card to get that in that machine. That increased because, since we switched to 911, they require you to have a CAD in your car, a computer.
Yeah, I
You
just
get
see
the
we
call,
did
you get all your
last year.
information through that computer. Every car has to have an air card, they use a lot of data. We have air cards for, all over the whole station for everything.
Are these purchased every year, or, I mean, this is a one-time deal?
They carry a monthly fee.
Okay.
I know Sprint has been trying to get our business, I believe we're Verizon, we're with Verizon on our air cards. Sprint has been trying to get our business for some time. We did a test run with them, and their air card screwed our machine on. So I'm not really, the guy can save us money, but at the same time, he's crippling one of my machines, it's not worth, it's not worth it.
I want to bump up to 410.27, major equipment purchase. Right below that, you have VASCAR, and if you go to the far right, you have radios, AEDs, tasers. That should actually be in the line item where you see $22,650.
Should be one item up, the regular AED pager should be next to the 22.
So the 22.6 includes new radios, new AEDs, and new tasers all lumped together.
I was gonna ask you about that, because you just mentioned it, we need new radios.
We need, the radios that we bought off of Whitehall, we've had a lot of trouble with them. They're getting worked on constantly, they weren't the best radios.
Too good to be true.
Right. And I asked Ed, and Ed's not having that problem, but Ed's guys use theirs far less.
We don't get nearly the use
Right.
they do.
So that would be for 10 radios, 4 AEDs. The AEDs we have are generation 3s, they're generation 5s now. We bought new batteries for them last year, it really didn't help the situation. So that we might have 1 or 2 AEDs that are actually operable at this point. And this day and age, you need to have an AED in a patrol vehicle. Our tasers are about 5 years old, that's about their life expectancy. Same thing, we're 2 generations behind on that. They work fine, but they're at the end, they don't have a lot of life left in them. We buy new batteries for them, but it's just different technology, there's more out there than what we have this time.
Just a question for you, and, why don't you at this time just go out and buy some and use forfeiture money for it? It's an unbudgeted emergency problem that you could go out and would really just go and buy them out of forfeiture money.
We bought, the ones we have now, we bought out of forfeiture money.
The used ones?
The radios,
Yeah.
we spent some, out of the, when we bought those radios, we didn't have enough, when we bought the used radios, we didn't have enough to cover us and the fire. Fire got what they needed, we got what was left, and we had to buy 6 radios then, and the cost is about $7,000. We paid for our asset forfeiture. Dan, you remember that
Yeah.
conversation on that?
Yep.
Okay.
You know, radio is something that's a necessity in the police field.
Right.
It's not a luxury, that should be included in the budget, that's a budgeted item, that's what it's meat and potatoes of police work, it needs radio.
My feeling though on that would be, you're halfway through your budget year, you're having problems with these, you have $130,000 sitting in this account here that could really help you out, and you could have new radios right then and order them. That's just my feeling on that.
But like I said, they're working, we've had problems with them, you know, like I said, that's, you know, the asset forfeiture fund, what its intent is to get you things that you normally wouldn't be able to get.
Okay?
Could they challenge that and deny it, Pat, if they saw, if they felt it wasn't
I
necessary?
didn't propose it to them. You know, anytime we make a purchase.
I mean, not everything's
call
automatic.
DC and I get an okay before we
Deny it?
go through with that. Like I said, a radio, AEDs, taser, in this day and age, that's necessities, that's things that you should get.
I
They're
understand
not
that.
extras.
I understand that.
So more or less, they may question, yeah, for radios.
They could question,
Question anything.
Yeah, but they, that'll,
Right.
it's like a red flag, radios or something.
You have to have. It should be, you know, we have a laundry list of things that we're gonna purchase out of that asset forfeiture money. One's a detention bench, that we're putting in the hallway right in between my office and Captain Snyder's office. You can't put a juvenile in a cell unless you're charging him as an adult. They audit you on that, and they audit us on that every year. So putting him on that detention bench, cuffing him to the bench, is gonna be a big plus for us. We don't have to have someone sitting there babysitting him the whole time. We have no soft cell. Most police departments nowadays have what they call a soft cell. It's not a cell, it's a room that can be locked from the outside, that can't be opened from the inside. That's what they prefer you put a juvenile in. We don't have that option, we have nowhere to put a soft cell. So the detention bench was the next best thing. That is being delivered tomorrow. Mr. Vicey's gonna install it for us. Stop sticks. We just ordered 4 stop sticks for the cars, which are they deflate the tires of the chase. They're about $400 a piece for the sets. What I did, I put a wish list out to the members of my department for tools that would enhance what they need to do, that would help them out in their day-to-day things. They gave me some very good ideas. That's what we're using the asset forfeiture fund to obtain some of those things. The stop sticks, the detention bench, you know, radios, AEDs, that was all suggested as well. Like I said, you know, I showed the list to Bob, and I think that we agree that these things are things that should be provided to the police.
I'm not questioning that, I'm not questioning. I'm
So, I
just-
mean, we do have a list of things that we are gonna use, we have earmarked for that fund. You know, we'll spend some money out of there, but it's getting us things that we wouldn't get. These are things that we should already have, that should be in proper work.
Well, like I mentioned to you, I think that you should redo that police shooting range down there and have that operational for you. I think that would be a big thing that you could use that money for. I think you should get the locker rooms fixed up like you wanna do down there. I think
Like I
that would
said,
be big too.
I got that, I got a quote from Franjo. It was much more than I anticipated. I gave it to Bob, maybe have Lindsay spec it out, 'cause it's probably gonna have to be put out. to
Yeah,
bid.
to put out for bid is higher.
It was
Right.
$27,000. It's an existing room that we wanted lockers, some lighting, and some flooring and a bench. I didn't think it would be that much. So I gave the paperwork to Bob, we're gonna spec it out and put it out. to bid.
Good,
And we'll pay for that on asset
good,
forfeitures.
that's good.
Isn't that something we could do in-house?
I don't know. I don't know if Bob's guys can do that or not. I mean, it's basically putting a rubberized floor in, can't be that hard.
Electrician to redo the lighting?
Right, and we weren't gonna really finish the ceiling, just leave it exposed, but add better lighting. A sink for guys to shave, brush their teeth, stuff like that.
I think it's something you can do in that.
But getting back to the firing range, the problem we're having there is that because of the length of the room, we would need a trap system to catch the bullet, catch the lead, spin it out, drop it in the body. We would also need a better exhaust system, because basically what we have in there is a bathroom exhaust fan for that, and you've seen the room, it's a big room. It's non-existent. But the trap system will eat up a good portion of that room, which would make it basically, we couldn't qualify there, it'd be too the trap system would take up, I believe it's like 12 feet, which makes the length, we couldn't qualify with our sidearms down there, there's not enough length.
You have to have that trap system.
If we don't, we're gonna run into the same problem of lead contamination over time again. You know, with that, you know, to have the proper ventilation system, probably wouldn't be that bad. The trap system, I mean, I don't know if you've ever been down there, there's a big armored plate, and it's just, everything just bounces off that and falls down. It's probably as wide as this table. I don't think anyone's gonna be running down there shoveling it out every time they're down there. You know, the lead itself is a health hazard. That trap system, what it would do, it would trap it into a certain, into a canister to, you can just dispose of it by emptying the canister. So, if we can find something that would work, that would not take up that much space and make it usable for us, my guys would love it.
I think you should really look at that and try to do that.
I'm all for it.
That's just my suggestion.
But I think it's gonna be expensive, and I think it may be, cut the distance down so far that, we may be able to qualify with a backup pistol, because it's a shorter distance to qualify, but with your sidearm, there's not enough length. There's barely enough length as it is.
Maybe you could have one manufactured, like Ron Byrne could make one in place right in there for you to do something like that.
Could be. I'll check
Well,
it.
you have to use lead bullets when you
Steel
go-
plating is really
No,
what it is.
that's another thing, what we could do, we could shoot with frangible ammo, which is lead-free. Shoots like the same thing, there's no lead in it, it wouldn't contaminate, but it's double the price of regular ammunition.
Well, if I can add to that, which I don't want to waste your time, but I was shooting a geese and duck with lead-free bullets, and I couldn't hit anything with them.
So, I
Not
mean,
put any of the other stuff
qualify-
either.
we
It's
couldn't
nothing to do with
qualify. You can't qualify with that ammo. It's, it might keep you sharp, it may help you, be calm when you're shooting, but it doesn't,
Well, that's
you
what
have to qualify with
That's
the
what I
ammo
meant,
you're
if you
carrying.
could qualify with it.
You know?
That's what I meant, if you could qualify with it.
No. No.
Are we still on the first page, or are we on the second page, or?
Second.
Do we want to
Second
talk
page.
about,
Second
about
page.
anything, because, I get down this list, the second page, there's nothing on here that is way out of line or sticks out, and frankly, 87.5% of the police budget is salaries and benefits.
Right.
That's the 800-pound gorilla we're talking about, 2,000 here, 500 there. It's inconsequential to the budget. So, what we're looking at, when I do the math, in the 2015 budget, we can see that the chief's salary and the salary for the captain and the sergeants. So you do a little simple division, and your sergeants average almost $75,000 a year. And the average salary for the 14 patrolmen is $68,000 a year, projected to go to $70,240 a year in 2016 for patrolmen. And, when I was looking at numbers, when we had to do the pension stuff and working with Bill Asay, we had at least one patrolman that made over $110,000. Now, I realized that he worked a lot of overtime, because that was in 13, you were hurt, Sabula was hurt,
Right.
and so I don't begrudge him making the money, he worked the time. But this is the 800-pound gorilla in the room, is, are we barely staffed? Are we adequately staffed? Are we overly staffed? We have, you know, I guess our detectives are in the sergeant category because they're really
Correct.
not even defined in the CBA, except they get an extra $2,000 a year or something like that. So, you know, when I look at some of the other communities around us, they don't have detectives. Is that a luxury that we can no longer afford? How much detecting are we doing in Munhall that we need 2 detectives versus, you know, Homestead has none, West Homestead has none, and the county does all the detective work on the homicides? I mean, I think
The
it's a
county does
legitimate
all-
question.
The county does, the homicides. The information they're provided is provided by the officers on scene, which are patrol officers.
Which, yeah,
You know, what our detectives do, they handle all of our evidence. And, you know, whether anyone wants to believe it or not, we handle a ton of evidence, probably double what West Homestead and Homestead do combined. We arrest more people than they do, we take a ton of dope off the street, we take a ton of guns off the street. Every one of those guns has to be transported down to the crime lab. All the dope has to be transported down to the crime lab. Anytime we make an arrest on burglaries, those people will need interviewed. You don't interview somebody with one person. You can always put, you know, a patrol officer with that person. We've had, when I worked as a detective by myself, years ago, and it was not an easy thing to do. To keep track of, because a lot of stuff gets punted to those 2 guys. Thefts, burglaries, scams, we get a lot of fraud calls anymore. Probably more so than the burglaries and the thefts. It's a big workload for one person, very big. Like I said, if you're, you know, police 101, you do not interview somebody by yourself. Those guys have worked together for a number of years. They're trained, they're comfortable with each other, and they do good work. Luckily, we don't have a lot of homicides that we would have to handle something like that. We push that off to the county because they have people that are, you know, versed in that. Sexual assaults, to a certain point, we handle them ourselves. After a certain point, we push them off to the county. Burglaries, we handle all ourselves, unless it's a multi-jurisdictional thing, we work with whoever's out there. But it's a lot of work to push on to one guy. West Mifflin, we have 2, Homestead has none, West Homestead has none. I think West Mifflin has 6 or 8.
Homestead and West Homestead are quite smaller communities, though.
Right, and that, you know, it is what it is. We actually have a 3rd guy that we work as a detective, and that's Caterina. He handles most of the drugs, just about all the drugs. He also works the street. Sergeant Fuller fills in on the street, Sergeant Cibula fills in on the street when needed. Fuller works steady Monday in uniform, 3 to 11. This Monday coming up, Cibula's working uniform 3 to 11. Jamie, I think last week, worked every shift in the whole department in uniform. Night turn, Monday night, Tuesday 3 to 11. I mean, they're not just doing detective work, they're doing everything.
well, right now, they're filling in for, we
We're
got
filling
people
in.
out, we got people on call.
We have 1 person off injured, 1 on light duty, and 1 on maternity leave. Maternity leave will be done at the end of next month. I'm hoping Sheriff gets sent back, he's going to the doctor tomorrow, I'm hoping he gets released for full duty. Officer Stolar has been off for 3 weeks with knee injury, knee and ankle. He was released today to light duty, so we're putting him on the desk. This is a bad time with the schedule because we've had qualifying at the range last week and this week. We have updates out at the academy tomorrow and next Monday. So yeah, they are filling in more now than they were. But like I said, Tom works a steady shift on the road. Joe doesn't as much, and Jamie's all over the board. So, are they working as detectives? Yes. Are they working as patrol officers at the same time? Yes. And the two detectives, sergeants, patrol, answer calls. They don't, you know,
point out toward the bottom before we finish with police on 41514, 45141. I kept the nomenclature there by dispatch, even though we don't do dispatch in 2013, 14, 15 budget. That was a nomenclature, and we'll probably get away from that next year, because in case we want to track previous audits to the current one, that's the nomenclature. However, when 415.14, the police dispatch Mark, he's not a dispatcher, of course, that's Mark Bojerski, who is a clerk, and he's full-time there, so that's what that is. Under 141, the prisoner, we did have budgeted and we never used, 2 part-time folks should we ever want to use to watch prisoners, and that's been discussed and debated a couple times in recent council meetings. So we did get a proposal from West Mifflin to if we were to use West Mifflin, $10,000 on a 6-month basis to test that out. Trial basis. Now, when council decides to do that, if council decides to do that, whether it's in January or whether it's next month, April or May, I budgeted $10,000 for that, whether we do it internally or whether we contract with West Mifflin. I can tell you that Mayor's not here tonight, but he will fight against any prisoner being transported anywhere.
Mayor and I disagree on that. The mayor wants
He
them.
doesn't have a vote, though.
I tried talking to him.
Right, the mayor wants them held here. I told the mayor, we, 16 hours out of a 24-hour day, we don't watch them unless we pull someone off.
Did he go up and see West Mifflin what they have? He went up there and did it?
He's been up there with me.
He's not impressed.
He's impressed, he's jealous. But he wants our prisoners to stay here, and he wants us to have someone that does 24/7.
Yeah.
I said, Mayor, we're not getting that back. If we were to win that one, we'd have them. But that's the reality. We don't have them. I think Homestead is paying West Homestead $30,000, $32,000 a year.
Right.
West Mifflin's offering us for basically 20 a year.
And they built a new jail.
Yeah, and they got brand new.
Can you take me up sometime
it
to
takes
see that, Joe?
It's worth going.
It takes so much liability off
That's
us.
crazy nice.
I
Would
mean,
you take me up
I would
sometime
have
to
to
see?
think that would save us, you're in the insurance business, I would think that would have to save us the insurance premiums.
It definitely, there's a cost to having holding cells, and that's, that part of the police liability insurance is going up. I mean, you see people hanging themselves in jail every day, and who needs that liability? If they're willing to take that liability,
If we can get rid of it, I'd say get rid of it.
it's 5 minutes up the road.
I agree. And like I said, the mayor and I are on opposite ends of that argument.
Well, who decides that?
We do.
You decided. Like I said, I don't, it was different. When we had a dispatch down there 24/7, it was not an issue.
Right.
We don't have that anymore. We're either calling Mark in when he's on his off hours and he's getting paid, or we're pulling the guy off the road that could be out patrolling the town. I think it's a no-brainer. Like I said, the mayor and I disagree.
I think it is.
$20,000 a year, I think it's a bargain.
When you think back a few years ago, we did it for Homestead,
We did it for Homestead.
and we were looking to do it for Whitaker, and we were looking to do it for West Homestead.
Right.
It only makes sense when they build a state-of-the-art holding facility up there that's like a county jail,
Right.
with the carport that you drive in, and then, you don't get out until you're in between the carport. The guy can't escape. So,
That inside door will not unlock until the garage door is locked.
Right.
So that guy can't, we had a guy run away from one of our guys transported it off the steps 3 weeks ago.
Well,
We
it's
caught him.
like you and I talked, this has been as 1945, what we have here.
Yeah.
It's so outdated.
Right, it's
We
not-
probably shouldn't even be operating it as we do now.
And that report from Harry Falk, or not Harry Falk, Harry Frick.
Harry Frick,
His report, I read his report twice, I don't think he's happy.
we don't have a lot of them. a couple of
He said that the facilities that we're working in are woefully inadequate for today's policing. And I agree, I say if we can get rid of that liability, get rid of it.
Okay.
Quick.
All right, if I have an off there short afternoon, I'm gonna get in touch with you, I'm gonna go up to West Mifflin with you, okay?
I remember being brought in here one time, I think it was something with my son or somebody in my family, and they had us in the little room, and they had the prisoner out in the hallway, and it was like, pull the curtain aside and look out there, is that him?
Yeah, we're probably like Girl Scouts or Cub Scouts, they come in and do tours all the time. Now we would push them out in the hallway for, you know, well, like I said, we arrest a lot of people. There's someone, you know, in those cells on a daily basis. You know, if it's someone that we're holding for the sheriffs to come pick up, or we're transporting to county jail, we can, you know, we can keep them there for an hour or so. While we're doing the paperwork, we can monitor them on the monitors. But to leave a drunk in there for 6, 8 hours, I say give it to us.
Well, I think for a $10,000 6-month trial period, I think we ought to try it and make sure it works for them and it works for us.
I agree.
And then we don't have to worry about, can we get a hold of Mark when we have a prisoner and there's something going on and you need people in the field?
You know what, we had an issue where, Officer Tracy, and this was like 2 weeks before she found out she was pregnant. She had someone in there, she was doing the paperwork, she was watching them on the monitor. Female tried hanging herself. Shannon had to go in and cut her down. The girl starts fighting with her. We have no one on the desk at the time. She needs help in the station. She's calling on her portable. Our guys are on a fatal accident. They can't leave. Homestead comes up here to back her up. They couldn't get into it. Building security, you know, they couldn't get in. So what she had to drag that lady in a headlock from the women's cell block out to the front door to let the Homestead guys in help her. 2 weeks later, she told me she's pregnant. There's too much
No correlation between the two.
There's too much liability.
We appreciate your candor on the issue.
Just want to point out at the bottom, maybe for Jason's benefit, the 41914 school crossing guard, $66,000. We share with the school district 50%, they reimburse us 50%. You'll see on the revenue side, $35,000 coming
But
in.
they don't reimburse us for the uniform for that, right?
No,
They don't reimburse us for that.
it's for the cost of some wages.
Pull right in.
Well, they should reimburse us for that.
They should be, I agree.
Something happens, they get a fine for everything.
We really haven't bought it since last year.
Yeah, we didn't buy any of this
They
back.
said no.
So until we have a collective bargaining agreement, we don't know what the wages and the true benefits will be, but try to come as close as we possibly can. Anything else with the police chief? If not, thank you, chief. We'll turn it over to Ed, fire chief. That's the blue is the spreadsheet. And the pink is what Ed's put together as part of his narrative. And we'll turn it over to Ed.
Thanks, Bob, appreciate it. There's a couple things that I wanted to discuss specifically. The first thing, since Jason, you may not know how we do this, so I'm gonna cover this real briefly on how the Bureau of Fire tracks our portion of the budget. So every year, once we receive the funding numbers, the budget numbers, I enter into an Excel program, all those numbers. And we have done this for the last 10 or 12 years, somewhere around there. So when a bill comes into the borough and goes up to the fire department, we figure out, myself or one of the 2 deputies only, one of my 2 deputies only, figure out what budget bucket it's coming from. Equipment purchases, fire prevention, whatever it is. We write on there, okay to pay, we write the budget bucket on there, and we initial it. We make a copy of it. That copy gets down to the borough office downstairs. That way, the secretary, in this case Becky, would know exactly what budget bucket to pull it from, and I keep a copy of it, and then it's entered on the Excel program, and that automatically makes deductions and so forth as I go along. So I know exactly where the fire department budget is on any given day. And go in there and answer any questions you have. I can go back about 10 years. If you wanna know what we spent in 2008 in July, I will go look, and in about 10 minutes, I will have your answer. So some of the numbers that you're gonna see here are a little bit off, and I've discussed this with Bob. There are always, typos and so forth that come up. And miscommunications that come up in the course of the year in the budget. And right off the bat, you'll see 411322, which is communications, and you'll see a $9,300 2015 year-to-date. I have budgeted $8,000 for that for next year. Under my explanations for what that is, you know, my justification form, you'll see that that's for radios, pagers, and so forth, which are vital, as Pat talked about, to our functioning. Specifically, we have to replace pagers 7, 8 a year on a regular basis, and radios 4 or 5. They drop off, we get a bad fire, who knows what happens to them. But that's what that comes from. Under my budget, I have $4,100 in that bucket, so that is a mistake or something has bled over to that, as an example. The same can be said for the equipment purchase, which is $411,396. So we're showing $56,726, which is over budget by about $26,000 or $20,000. I assure you, I have never been over budget on any category, so that also is a mistake. To date, as of 9/30, out of my equipment budget, I've spent $7,300. That is rapidly changing because we're nearing the end of the year, and I have received all my quotes and proposals, have approved, and you know, through the search process, find out where the cheapest, best deals were, and so forth, as is required by our standards, and you will be seeing that category drop dramatically. That equipment purchase. So that's some of the answers. One of the things that I can't answer in the budget, or I shouldn't say can't, could not in the past, and my predecessor could not either, was the utility bills, because we never really get a copy of the utility bills at the Bureau of Fire, just never have. So every year, we just say, here's these numbers, and we throw these utility numbers on, we're guessing based upon what the year-to-date numbers are. And I've always been suspect of the year-to-date numbers. My year-to-date number, for instance, for the sewage for number 2 is $1,019. That's item 411,352. Yet we have none there for number 4 and none for number 5. And as Bob will explain, these are probably traditionally just screw-ups or mistakes made typing this up or resolving these issues. That has to be the issue. The utilities are you know, I don't trust the utility bills, that what I see here. Now, I budgeted what I believe to be a fair utility cost for the structures for 2016, and that's what I put in there. In 2016, and recently, Bob and I came to an agreement, and he's gonna give me I'm gonna get copies of all the utilities, because I have that space in that Excel program in the document. I can make copies of all those, or he's gonna give me copies, and I'll enter them in that program, and I'll know middle of 2016, end of 2016, I'll know exactly what I'm on the utility bills. Just never been given those bills before.
Ain't number 2 combined with the borough building?
Yes, there is a percentage that's taken out. It should be like, I think it's like 10%, or there's a percentage that's taken. So, let's say the bill for the borough building is $100. They probably take 40 for number 2, and then 60 for the borough building. It's probably a little high, but it is what it is. There's no true way to split that. Well, you could, but that would entail.
Put a separate meter in.
Yeah, that would entail separating, it's just not in this building, that's not gonna happen. So that's probably not a reality, so we're fine if we go a little over on number 2's bills, but you know, it is what it is, it's okay, it drives us nuts. What drove me nuts for the last couple of years is the fact that I was paying for number 3, and we haven't had anything in there in years. That's gonna end this year, Bob and I spoke about that. So at least that won't be coming out of the fire budget, those utility costs and maintenance costs. So one of the other things, then that's why some of the numbers may look skewed on the utilities. Okay, so just so you know, and some of the other numbers may be off and out of whack. I am going to resolve, I'm going to try to resolve on the fuel. I have similar difficulties resolving the fuel.
I want to commend you for not spending any fuel so far.
I assure you that we are not at $16,000 this year. We eliminated and have taken steps to try and save money via the budget crisis that we had, you know, a couple of years ago and everything like that. The fire department's kind of got on board. We eliminated doing a lot of stuff that makes being a fireman fun, like going to parades and stuff like that, because there's fuel costs. We go to a couple. You have to do that, but we try to keep our fuel budget down. I will resolve the fuel budget in a couple of weeks. I'm going right to the horse's mouth. I've requested an audit from our provider. I will receive that audit. I will know exactly what we spend on fuel. That's not just the vehicles. Don't forget, we have chainsaws and fans and all sorts of stuff that run on fuel oil, and so forth. So all that will be included in there, because all that is purchased from one provider under contract with the borough. So, if there's any question on that, I will update that.
Let me just stop you there for a moment. We run into a problem, it's an internal problem with Listix is our supplier for our gasoline and fuel. We just get one statement a month, and we're trying to figure out how much goes to police, how much goes to public works. So we're now gonna require that every time an officer or a public works person fills up, they bring a receipt back, and it says either public works or police.
Why don't you go to 3 different phases? They have to have a phase number, police would have a phase number.
We used to do that, and they got away from it, but we're gonna go back to
Yeah,
that.
well,
It's the
you-
only way you're gonna track
Yeah,
it.
phase number, that's it.
Matt quit doing that when Matt was in there. For years, they write up a little pink receipt, take it back, you hand it in. Matt's like, I just throw them away, so don't bother bringing them in. So we haven't taken them from his tax in
He got free gas too.
4 years.
Probably did.
How many
Hey,
different
I'm
phases
sorry,
you
go
need?
ahead.
I don't
No,
know.
that's okay. Stop me if there's any questions. So, moving on from that, a couple other things that I wanted to really touch base on. Building maintenance is another one. And one of the things that we find with building maintenance, and I've reported this to you guys in my monthlies, is the garage doors, and I know what's coming, the boilers. Okay. This borough has never, ever done any preventive maintenance on anything as that I can remember. I've been a fireman for 32 years, and things break and go bad, and if they were just maintained, that might not happen. But boiler season's coming. You know, I don't have it in here, but it would behoove the borough to consider a preventive maintenance program on all the boilers. They need,
Absolutely.
and Ricky, you can speak to this, they need purged,
They
they
need
need
cleaned,
fired up, they need
should
filter
be
changes.
cleaned, they should be cleaned, oiled, checked, filled, bled every year.
And this
We
is
do.
not,
I think we do, we're doing that now, we did it last year, we're doing it now, every station, including this building.
In-house, or we do with somebody else?
No, contract out to do that. I'm told it's being done, I mean, I don't go out and look at it.
Who'd we contract with?
I'm sorry?
Who'd we contract with to do
The
it?
solicitor?
and that's great. But those are traditionally the maintenance things I see, stuff like that. They're generally, and this year it's been the garage doors, we've had problems with the garage doors. Those garage doors,
Garage door for number 5 yet?
no, that door needs replaced.
That's not a garage door, it's their, yeah.
That's a man door.
That's the man door, they have 2 man doors that
We
are
need to
rusted
get
out
that
and
replaced
replaced.
for them this year.
And that didn't appear in my budget, this year. That
That
was
was a
something
few
that.
years ago, it was in the budget, and
Yes.
then we never know what happened to it, but the money was missing.
That was, right, that was something that was scheduled to be replaced and be done 3 years in a row. It has not been done as far as I know.
We gotta
But
fix that.
my suggestion to council would, and this is, you know, you have building maintenance and you have each of the stations. Why not give just one building maintenance number, put, you know, if I have $5,200, put $6,000 on it or something like that. I will track what building gets the maintenance, I will report that to council. Either semi-annually, quarterly, or at the end of the year, I can report to you what station had what repairs done. These are minor repairs like the garage, but look, garage doors don't break at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. Garage doors break at 9 o'clock Sunday evening, requiring a $1,000 repair bill. It's just the way it happens. So that's just food for thought for you guys. Additionally, I had a meeting last night. We've been having some issues with the first vehicle, with the way, the service that we're actually being provided. So every so often, we'll get first vehicle in and we'll meet with them. And because I'm the one that has to hear the battalion chiefs, and they're the ones that are seeing and feeling the pain of the service. This year, I had an experience with my command vehicle not running properly, and been down there 4 times to get it fixed, and it's still not right. So I said, all right, it's enough. So I brought first vehicle in, and we had a meeting last night in the community room, and had all the battalion chiefs here and my deputies. And one of the things that came up in this was the fact that first vehicle is not, they have nobody certified, trained emergency vehicle maintenance personnel that work for them. They're truck mechanics. They're great at working on pickup trucks, the police cars, the garbage trucks, dump trucks, they're great at that. When it comes to the fire trucks, I don't know if any of you have been on one or seen one recently, there's a lot of stuff on a fire truck that has nothing to do with garbage, towing, pulling, it's all, there's generators, water pumps, you know, the ladder trucks is a separate issue I'm gonna get to. And I'm not advocating a change with first vehicle here. What I am is, I'm just kind of informing you that they don't really have anybody do that, and that's generally not a problem. But there are some things that are not getting maintained. There's a generator on number four's pumper, that's an AMPS hydraulic generator that powers the lighting system. And that's never been ever once maintenance, serviced per O&M, the manufacturer. AMPS hydraulic. That's required to be fluid changed, filters changed. The reason First Vehicle doesn't do that is because they're not hydraulic generator mechanics.
Their contract excludes fire equipment up to a certain amount, I think.
So there are, I couldn't speak to that because I've never seen the contract. I would like to probably look at it, but I have a pretty good relationship with Scott from First Vehicle, and they are pretty good to us. I mean, they maintained.
And changing the oil, the fluid and stuff like that, but major items that is
Number
excluded.
four did a routine maintenance 3 months ago on their fire engine
Changing
and
oil.
found the oil empty and the antifreeze empty.
It's not good.
They just did a routine maintenance. They have nothing better to do on a Sunday. They're up there dicking around and there's no fuel, there's no oil in it. It's a fire engine. It's not a squad, it's not a pickup truck, it's a fire engine. If we blow the engine on it, it's gonna cost us $200,000 to replace it, so, or more. So, these are things that I addressed with First Vehicle. Now, we can live with that. They do some other stuff, the fire pump testing, and I have concerns about the fire pump testing. And we agreed last night that their mechanics are not to work on fire pumps. If they're not certified to work on a fire pump, they're not touching our fire pumps. They're gonna contract that out and should contract that out. But where I really, really have a concern is with the ladder truck. Number one's telesquirt and number five's aerial truck require special maintenance. Now this can be done semi-annually by the membership. And basically, to grease the ladder truck, you lay the ladder truck out in the driveway nose. Extend that stick and you strip all the grease off of that and in the bearing table and all that stuff, and you pull all the grease off, and it's a pain, and you put new grease on. And First Vehicles provide us with the grease to do that, because that's not part of their contract, but once a year it is. Okay? I'm gonna circle back to this here in a second. So to do number one's truck, it takes them about 6 hours. To do number five's truck, that's starting at 8 o'clock in the morning and finish at 10 or 11 o'clock at night. These are just the guys that have families, their wives are wondering where the hell they're at, and they're up there servicing the trucks. So the subject we got into last night was about who in First Vehicle is certified to make little adjustments and changes and stuff like that to the ladder trucks. Nobody in First Vehicle is qualified to adjust anything on a ladder truck. Should the ladder truck tip over, or a fireman fall out of a basket or off a ladder truck because of a failure, everybody's gonna end up in court. It happened in Monroeville a couple of years ago. The ladder truck was here, and it ended up here. And 2 firemen ended up in the hospital.
Happened down Homestead.
It did happen down
I was
Homestead.
there.
So you do know these things do happen. My concern is when they get on the maintenance records and they find out, hey, who serviced your aerial truck last? Oh, First Vehicle.
What did we,
Not First Vehicle.
what did we do before we had first vehicle?
We subcontracted it out to different agencies that were certified.
This is what I brought
We
up
still,
before.
we still did that. We weren't asking them to do things that they couldn't do. Some of the stuff, you took trucks to Lowry's before, and
It was a disaster before too, because everybody was taking their stuff everywhere, and nobody had one person. I don't like Lowry's, I don't like
Right.
Ackerman's, okay, so we needed to form, so, and with the borough having the fleet and the fleet service, it makes sense. But there seems to be a general view that First Vehicle has saved the day, and we do have major concerns with them. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I brought this up 2 years ago or a year ago about the budget program, when we're talking about the budget program, about the COG. Our COG here doesn't really do much in fire trucks and whatnot, but the South Hills COG, they do a lot of that stuff. And are you aware of what they do for fire departments? or not?
They do a lot of training, they do others, they do
They
some
do
stuff.
maintenance on pumps and whatnot,
Yeah, so-
and trucks, I know they do. 'cause
The
I've
pump
talked to them.
testing, they bring a company in to do the pump testing annually, which is required. And I'm actually going somewhere here with this too, because I think that in addition to my budget, we should have KME, which is the manufacturer of number five's ladder truck, come in once a year, opposite from the annual maintenance that we do with First Vehicle and the ladder testing. So we do the ladder testing once a year, which is a non-destructive test of the ladder. They put weights on it, they measure its drift, compensation, all that stuff, and it's an all-day thing. We do all our ladders. We do number one's ladder, we do all the ground ladders, the whole 9 yards. They're all non-destructive tests, we do it once a year. I would suggest that on the opposite, that we do, have KME come in and service number 5's ladder truck. And I'm more concerned about number 5's ladder truck because there's a lot more to do. And I can inquire as to whether they will do a maintenance on it. They are
Yeah,
technically.
you should do that and get a price on
But
it. Obviously,
I was going to have the number by tonight, but it's not, it wasn't available. It's going to be somewhere around $5,000, something like that.
Do you know what West Mifflin does to a similar truck like they would have? Do you know what they do to their equipment?
West Mifflin's a little different story because each station in West Mifflin is independently, I don't want to say wealthy, that's not the word I'm looking for, but they're very much independent. Wealthy.
They got more money.
Yeah, but what they do is West Mifflin gives each station, I think it's $100 and some thousand. Okay, so they give West Mifflin 3, West Mifflin 4, 2, and Homeville, each get $100 some thousand from the borough. And that pays for all their maintenance costs. Basically, that's fuel, insurance, and maintenance of the vehicles. If you put tires on a ladder truck, they're $700 a tire, or they're more than that actually. So it can get rather expensive when you have to replace all the tires on a fire truck. So that's what West Mifflin does, and they use it. And in the West Mifflin, they don't have a borough chief, and they do whatever the hell, this station's comfortable with this person. And, some may go to Lowry's, some may go to, Les Chacks,
Well, I don't really
Pittsburgh
like
Mac.
that.
What's
You-
that?
You wouldn't wanna have to deal with that, would you?
What? No.
Everybody goes certain ways.
No, whoa, I'm not advocating that. I'm advocating cleaning the first vehicle up, and I'm gonna be monitoring that based upon the conversation we had last night with them. And I'm telling this, I don't know when the contract for first vehicle's up. But before that contract's signed, I would like to have 20-minute input with you guys privately, to explain my concerns before you renegotiate your
I think
contract.
you're absolutely
Because there's
right.
some things in there that I want to point out that council traditionally wasn't aware of, and it's important stuff, so.
you said you didn't see it.
No, I've never seen the contract before, actually. I don't know what's covered, but I do know this. After the NFPA, the National Fire Protection Association, says fire trucks should be replaced every 15 years. That's what the NFPA says. Of course, the NFPA is not providing any funding. But there's an NFPA standard for everything. And the one on fire trucks says fire trucks must be replaced every 15
Well, I
years.
think.
Okay?
I
no,
don't-
After 15 years, they go into reserve status. So, First Vehicle throws that at us, and they say after 15 years, they're not necessarily responsible for major repairs on that vehicle.
That's correct.
Now, our vehicles have less than 10,000 miles on them. It might be 20 years, Lumber Ford's rescue truck that they have up there's an 84 or something like that. It's got 11,000 miles on it. And this year, January 1st, the transmission shifter went bad. It's in perfect working condition, this vehicle. It's got no miles on it. And I had to pay $1,800 to have that repaired. It wasn't covered by First Vehicle.
Well, I understand how that contract works. They do routine repairs and maintenance as a regular part of the contract. But once the vehicle reaches a certain age, they only do the oil changes and stuff like that. They don't do the repairs under the contract.
Right, if they're just gonna do
And
oil
part of that, supposedly is they might not be able to get parts. I know they recommended to number 5 that they not buy that one truck that they just went out and bought it anyway. And then we couldn't get brake linings for it, you remember that?
I do. And
And
I
they
know
shouldn't have bought that
that-
truck.
there's more to that story.
But
It was disputed
and
by
I'm not
another
defending
mechanic.
them, I'm just saying, I've
I
seen the
understand.
contract, I've read the contract, it's been several years. It's been good for us in a lot of ways.
Yes.
And this is an ongoing issue that I think now that you're chief, you can resolve that portion of it, which is exclusive to fire department vehicles versus the other vehicles in our fleet. Because they charge us, like, for a police car, it's a charge of 1 times a multiplier. For a pickup truck, it's 1 times a multiplier. For a garbage truck, it's 2 times the multiplier. A dump truck, it's 2 times. I think the fire trucks are 3 times the multiplier.
Right.
A first vehicle, don't care how many miles you got on, once 15 years.
I understand that, but they have their reasons, I guess, for doing
Well,
that.
they're
But
using NFPA as a crutch. And that really bothered me that I had to pay $1,800 to put that shifter in this year. Fortunately, council, allowed me a bucket for that last year, so that I had money in there, but otherwise I gotta pull it out of another budget bucket somewhere. So, that's where we're at on that.
You
I
know
just
something,
wanted-
that the way that our truck fund's been maxed out because of the purchase of the ladder truck, our trucks are gonna get old, we talked about that a couple years ago.
Yeah, we are currently looking at replacing number two's engine, while it's still sellable or serviceable, if you will, it's in great condition. We are currently looking at turning that over and replacing it and coming up with ways to do that. So the next purchase is not that far away. The truck fund is doing a little bit better than, it's not doing great, but we're not tap dancing our way down the street, but it's maintaining very well. We do get a fairly good response from the borough, which is like 35%. There's a lot of areas of town that don't give a dime to the truck fund. If we could just get them to do that, we wouldn't have any problem replacing the fleet cycle.
Every return is about 35%.
Yep. And that money comes from specific areas of town. There are certain areas of town that give nothing. Those areas you'll find are the high renter districts, where there's a lot of landlord-owned facilities. We just don't get anything off of tenants. And maybe a fee somewhere down the road would help that, but, anyways, I'd like to move on.
Is there any way that we can, these rental units where there's, 2-3 families living in, have them, pay for fire service or pay, the rented properties?
I don't believe you can single them out, I don't think you can discriminate against them. You can implement a,
Public safety.
user service fee. I think Homestead did that.
What is it?
A user service fee. Homestead implemented that.
They still do that.
Yeah, well, I
That's
think
the
it was
billing?
just a couple years ago, 2 years ago that they did it. Because Cunningham said, you ought to do that. I said, I'm not sure I wanna have another tax.
Okay,
How's
so
it work?
you're not allowed to bill.
Well,
No, they bill
we talked about
everybody
this.
it's a user service fee. I'll get more information on that.
Right.
You're welcome to have a fire tax as well, that's legal under the.
I've gone down that road with legal, before, and not just with Vashevek, prior to him, and Louis, and both came up with similar answers. Should we bill, of course, Louis' answer was a lot more interesting than Vashevek's. It says right in the borough code, fire protection must be provided by the tax base.
Right.
So when you start billing people, that kind of goes against,
Well, this
that
isn't
wording.
billing people if they have a fire. It's a services fee that you can put on, and specifically the reason Homestead did it was because so many of the occupants are nonprofits and tenant occupancies that they thought that since they can't get real estate tax from the people, that they would implement this service tax. And in fact, I think that's one of the things that Rodriguez was not happy about on his big project on 8th Avenue, is it was gonna be a $7,000 service fee a year for that building. So I'll look into that for you.
I'd be interested to see that. I'm certainly not interested in costing the public a dime or anything like that. The fire budget is fairly tight. We try to keep it, I'm not asking for additional specialty stuff here or anything like that.
I was gonna say, I know we talked about this a few times already in the past about billing, and they keep saying that we're not allowed to bill. But I just talked to a fire department just a couple of weeks ago, oh, it was longer than that, maybe a month or so ago. How could they bill? They bill for every accident they go to.
You can do that.
Insurance company.
Building insurance company, you can do that. Actually, you have to have an ordinance, and there's a lot more that goes into that than just doing that. We don't run enough accidents annually to be able to pay for the billing agency to be able to do that. I mean, the police run thousands of accidents, we may get dispatched to 100 annually, so I don't know where the payout would be on that, and it would be minimal, I would think. There are municipalities that bill for the service of
coverage under homeowners
I rolled-
policies.
I rolled the Monroeville Fire Department recently during the course of my work by accident, and I was given a $500 bill, and I had to pay it. Something in Monroeville's ordinances that allows them to do that. I was told that's illegal. But they worded so that it's an equipment usage and fuel, whatever, they word their ordinance. I've tried to find it, can't find it. It's some kind of a surcharge.
Also nuisance calls,
Call Tim Moore. He'll tell us.
But yeah, nuisance calls are the same way, but nuisance calls must be defined. What's a nuisance call? You know what I mean, false alarms on Holiday Inn, some of those are nuisance calls. If I could continue on, because I know you guys don't want to be here all night, if nobody minds, I just, the Holiday Inn's definitely a nuisance though, it's a problem. We're dealing with that better, putting a new fire panel. So building maintenance I mentioned, you might want to, combine that into one. I do want to point out that 511.753 is on the second page of the fire budget, and that says fire equipment insurance, and then right under it, portable equipment insurance. That fire equipment insurance, 753, should be vehicle insurance. That's the cost of our replacement insurance for the vehicles. And also the portable equipment insurance is the policy that I talked about. Each company also pays a portion of that. Not that number, that's our end of this, but the stations also put into that, that equipment insurance. That's Bureau of Fire's portion. And that, we get a return on that almost every time we have a major fire, because our return is as a small deductible to replace a lot of equipment. To give you an idea of how this pays off, I went to Glassport 15 years ago on a major structure fire. I lost $28,000 worth of gear that I had to throw away the next day. Bunker gear at $2,200 a piece, I had to throw away 15 sets, and I had to throw away 9 self-contained breathing apparatus, each one $6,000. I was shit out of luck. I was the battalion chief of number 4, and where was I gonna come up with that? Number 4 would have been out of business. We'd have been down, we wouldn't have been able to recover from that had we not had this policy. So that's what the portable equipment insurance does, replaces nozzles, broken, things like that. In the event, it's very important to us. And I talked about the fuel, and there is one ongoing issue that Bob and I are trying to work out. I don't know what the hell it is. We have a problem with Comcast. And we have a big time problem with Comcast. You see nothing in my budget for Comcast bills or anything like that. We have $10,000 worth of Comcast bills sitting on my desk. I have no idea what they are. The fire stations each get free cable. Okay, each fire station gets free cable, and that's free basic cable. The stations, if they want HBO and all that stuff, they can pay for that. But part of the agreement with the borough is free cable. So they have free cable. As far as I know, the only other thing stations get is a fax line. If we're paying $10,000 a year to have 4 fax lines, we're doing something I don't understand. We are getting ripped off by Comcast here somehow, and I don't know what's going on. So, because we have nothing else with Comcast. Also, each station is monthly getting these cable bills for hundreds of dollars, and they're adding up. The one bill that I saw in there was number one has I forget how many $1,000 bill that they're gonna owe for Comcast. No, we don't. So I've asked Bob to try and get a meeting with Comcast. This may, the way I see it right now, may involve Evashevik at some point getting involved here as well. Council needs to know about this. I don't know what the hell these
I
bills are.
thought that was being resolved, because this goes back to Becky and Missy said that they were getting it resolved with Comcast.
Well, when I had asked,
Back to the 911, or the fax machines that we had to put in there, and I do agree, it's way out of control, and we have a call into our government affairs rep to try to bring some folks together and try to resolve this thing.
Just so it's not pay-per-view,
Well, I don't know. That's why I asked the chief to check with his chief to see if they didn't ask for something that we don't know about.
that is strictly verboten, they know that. If they want something like that, they get it on their own. But we'll tell you, look at it, look it up, yes.
Well, maybe that's,
But none of the stations,
We got WrestleMania or anything?
Well,
none of
let's get it
them,
resolved.
I trust these guys, I trust every one of my battalion chiefs, I trust them all.
I trust no.
And I definitely trust my battalion chiefs.
I know we don't have nothing.
And I know number 4 doesn't. And I'm looking at their number 1's and number 4's bills, and they're way out of whack. And I don't understand it. And Comcast, internet, each station pays for their own internet, in the station. I don't understand, what the problem is with Comcast, but I kind of make the council aware of this, because when I asked so that I could resolve the bills, so that I could see the bills, so that I can add them to my monthly budget, at the end of the month I could add them there, then all of a sudden I get a stack this big from Comcast bills. So I go, holy crap, what is this? And I start scooting through them, and I do the math, and I'm $10,000. What? I don't even know what that is. So, and if I don't sign it, and assign a budget to it, a number to it, the fire department's not paying for it. You know, I mean, that's the way we operate.
At
So,
least we have some leverage now, I mean, Verizon's in town, we can,
yeah, well, I'm worried about having to resolve those bills.
I mean,
we
which
gotta resolve those, right, they gotta work it out for us.
we have fax machines in every house. And I know initially when we did the installation, there were a lot of issues with that. But that was well over a year ago, so.
So the same issues,
Yeah.
we, they're an issue with that fax
I've
machine.
got an issue with our water bill.
Ed, I want to compliment you on all the backup that you presented. As part of your material, that backs up your numbers, it's nice.
Thank you.
You give yourself a raise, Ed. I didn't see it in there.
Tell me your salary.
Oh, there's the, vehicle repairs, $392. I budgeted $4,000 I used 0, and I will use probably 0 unless we have an accident. I shouldn't have said this, but that's for random things that come up. You know, a guy backs into a mailbox or something like that, and you have to get a vehicle fixed or a bumper replaced. That's what that bucket is for. I put $4,500 into it, just because I thought it deserved a little bit of a bump. But you're gonna see, hopefully you'll see 0 in that bucket, for year end, you know, because that means that I didn't have to make any additional repairs, this year. But we've needed that for years, because we have nowhere to make those repairs, like the $1,800 repair I had to pay for in January. We have nowhere to make, a repair to a mirror that falls off a truck, because they clipped a bus with on Main Street. We have no budget, you know, I have to pull it out of, I don't know where, the
That's all minor
purchase,
stuff,
you know what I mean?
that's a couple minor things.
Yeah, so, I just wanna make sure that you guys understand what it is. Now, before, I'm pretty much finished for now. Does anybody have any questions for me? Is there anything that I can enlighten you on, or, you know, anything else? Jason, any questions?
No, I agree with Dan, I love that in this documentation, I mean, your numbers from last year, this year, you know, point something percent, you know, it's minimal.
So, it's a little difficult for me to get in and see Bob in the day. I kinda have to take off work or adjust it, so that communication, but we communicate by email and phone frequently, so we're working together. So, thank you.
Okay, good report.
If there's nothing else, we will next Wednesday evening, look at public works and garbage sanitation.
Well, Bob, one thing I would like to see is, and I was gonna bring this up under the police, but, since you have the workers' comp in here, because it's a separate policy for the fire department, and it's going up, you know, $8,000. I used to fight with Becky all the time about this. I really would like to see the proportionate share of the workers' comp be allocated to the department it's in. So if you could have a line item
You wanna
on
do
the
that for
police
each
budget.
department for 2016, each one, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, based on the 15 numbers, but we should at least allocate that to the department. And for the next meeting, whatever the work comp is for sanitation and public works, I don't know that we need to break that down. But the total should be shown to the combined departments. I think those numbers.
We have the rate for each type of
Yeah, you can
classification.
interpolate and go through it, and at least approximate what those numbers really are.
Under that workers' comp too, just to make council aware too, this is kind of separate from the budget, I just want to make you aware. Alex Strict is gonna be out for another year. He had, both knees are re-fractured. His plate is coming out on his knee.
Last meeting, he was doing great.
He just found this out, he's going under the knife, tomorrow.
Oh.
He'll be out for a year,
Wow,
so.
that's bad news.
He's a young kid though, if that would happen to me, I'd be retired, so, you know, so he's gonna recover, he's gonna make a full recovery. But
Insurance.
he's gonna have to go through it all over again.
Is he fully covered, everything's covered?
Yes. Yes, we have a supplemental policy over top workers' comp that covers you above that, that's what the Relief Association does. It's similar to an Aflac policy, but makes Aflac look like it's in kindergarten, so it covers you 100%, so we don't believe that being a volunteer firefighter should cost you or your family anything. So we spend a lot of money in that Relief Association on those benefits.
We have a lot of good insurance policies that cover the people very well.
That's it, can we adjourn the meeting? Bob, you done?
You're the chairman.
Adjourn the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Pat.
You're here tomorrow night. You're here tomorrow.